Welcome back to the Simple Man's Gospel, a gospel podcast for the simple everyday non-Bible scholar. All of us that are just trying to figure out the day-to-day gospel applications or gospel understanding. Come join us. I'm here with my co-host, Tom.
How's everybody doing?
Hopefully y'all are doing good. If not, hopefully you find some peace.
I know.
Some
we
point.
need to get this episode quick because The Last of Us is on.
Follow our other podcast, the movie nerds or movie nerds alert.
No, movie nerds.
Not nerds. Alert. Movie nerds.
We're done. We're done with the alert.
Follow movie nerds if you want to join the discussion about movies and TV shows and hear us swear and whatnot because we're not perfect.
No, we're not.
How's everything going?
Good.
Good.
It's Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday.
Yeah, I had to teach the young men today.
Oh, is that what you do?
I'm an advisor.
Okay.
So basically, I don't do anything. If they ask me to teach, I've been teaching in the church for 22 years, basically. Like every calling I have is I've been a gospel doctrine teacher like 4 times.
Nice. Okay.
I've been in young men teaching them for like the last 10 years. So,
what group do you like the most to teach? Do you like gospel doctrine? Do you like the youth?
I like gospel doctrine.
What do you like? Yeah, what do you like about each? So, what do you like about teaching gospel doctrine? What do you like about youth? For those of you that aren't members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we serve in different callings, and so gospel doctrine is just a Bible study. What most Christians would say Bible study, but we study more than the Bible. Obviously, we've got all our standard works in the.
I think pretty much everybody knows what a Sunday school is, though.
It's a Sunday school, yeah. We'll simplify it for everybody. Yeah. So, gospel doctrine, Sunday school. What do you like about that versus the youth, and what do you like about the youth versus gospel doctrine, Sunday school?
I think the difference is like I think the young men are a lot easier to wow.
Oh yeah,
with all the stuff that and like everything, because most of the stuff that I teach is like new to them. My wife always tells me, "You teach the same thing every year," and I was like, "Well, I get different young men every year, so they haven't heard." My famous lesson I always have. And people already heard it, I'm sure, like 3 times. Is the Father's Day lesson. I also have the 10 virgin lesson, like all these young like that. And then when the Lord sent the apostles away and they're in they're in the sea, that lesson I teach. And I teach the feeding of the 5,000. When you teach young men, these are something that's new to them, and it gets me excited because it gets like I'm like, okay, they haven't heard this. That means I know I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I know I gotta go. If they ask any question, I've got it already down.
You've got the answers. Kind of like okay,
pretty easy. The gospel doctrine is different. I can't be that. I can't teach that same thing. So it's a little bit more challenging to teach these older people who already know most of the stuff I've taught and anybody taught.
So you find it hard to have like a meaningful discussion in a gospel doctrine class? No,
I always ask.
There's not like new stuff that you can bring up.
No,
okay.
There's really anything new, unless you quote like different apostles and prophets of our modern day, from the conference talk or anything that they write from the devotional. Yeah. But that's different. But for the most part, is the adult class, the gospel doctrine, is more of like conversational. Like you have to get them to talk, but the young men, they'll listen to you. Now, if you want to get them involved, which I do, which I like to do, is then you ask them questions, and then you just one of the thing I'm okay with a lot of times is awkwardness.
Like awkward silences.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I'll sit there until somebody answers.
You stay silent until somebody says something.
Like, you tell me. You want me? I'm teaching you now, but I need to know certain things. So The adult class is a little, as to me, I like it because it challenged me to actually. I know it sounds weird, but it actually challenged me to actually prepare,
To study a little bit more.
study a little bit more. With the young men or the younger kids, it's a little bit easier because the only hard part about them is you gotta somehow bring it back that will relate to them at their
Yeah.
time of life, and so
Yeah.
but that's not challenging though because they're really not going through much right now besides puberty and all that fun
Dude,
stuff.
puberty was for me,
So,
I don't know. Puberty was a
but
tough
gospel
time for me,
doctrines I
gospel.
like a little bit more because it challenges me. My wife always says, "You teach the same lesson every time." I was like, "I know I teach the same lesson, but I moderate. I change it up a little bit and all this." It's like, yeah, but she goes, "Babe, but in the end, it comes back to what that same principle." I was like, "All right, well then you heard all my lesson. We're done then. Let's get divorced."
But shouldn't it, and I don't know, maybe this will be our discussion today, but shouldn't it come back to like the same principles?
Yeah,
I
I think
mean, maybe I,
you can't really expect teachers to like, I don't know. You know how I think our expectation of apostles and prophet when we listen to them in conference. So for those who don't know, we get to listen to we okay, first of all, we believe that there are 12 apostles and a prophet here on earth, just the same as it was when Christ was on earth.
yeah,
And so our church has had that line of authority, as we call it, or the knowledge that we know that there's prophets and apostles here on earth. And every 6 months we get to listen to them, listen or sleep, however you want to call it.
I often play catch up.
We encourage people to listen, but there's an expectation of one speaker and I look forward to his every single time. I always jokingly say, once he's spoken, conference is over for me. I'm done. This is
Wait,
Elder Jeffrey R.
I was
Holland.
gonna guess Elder
Yeah,
Holland.
and
Yeah,
there's an expectation of him to always like wow us.
he's
But
very
everything that he
direct.
says, but everything that he says is a wow. But
Yeah,
people expect this thing like, oh, okay, he did this. Let's see if he can top his last talk. Like, well, no, his last talk was great. So was this one. But people tend to like wanna up the anthem and so any anthem, whatever that word is I'm trying to
up the
say. But
ante.
yeah, Annie, there you go.
Yeah,
I feel like there's like expectation of teachers have to like do this creative thing, but yeah, we can be creative. We can come up with games and quotes and stuff,
right.
but in the end, we always relate it back to the same principles, the same gospels that we teach over and over again.
Yeah, it
No
should
matter
all
what,
come
no
back
matter
to
where you
Jesus
go,
Christ
yeah, no matter where you go in the United
and
States,
the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
I
Saints.
say anywhere, it's the same
I
principles.
wonder. I wonder how it would differ in different countries. I mean, I've been to service member groups in the military in different countries, but that's the same. Those are all U.S. members. So
Yeah.
I do feel like, well, there was, okay. So in 2016, I was deployed to a Middle Eastern country, Qatar.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah.
Dude, how did I
And
not know this?
you didn't know
I've known
this?
you for this, and I didn't even know you
Yeah.
left us.
So
That's crazy.
I've been to two Middle Eastern countries in my military service, for 6 months at a time. Um, and I feel bad for my brothers in arms in the army because they're a year. Most other deployers are a year. Anyway, so I was in Qatar in 2016, and we had members from. There were some members from Canada, so there were service members from Canada attending the branch that we were in on
Okay.
Sundays, and it flowed the same, the exact same. Um, and then we got to attend a ward. So in Qatar, there's two wards. They meet on Fridays because Islam, the Sabbath is on Friday, so that's their day of worship. So everything shuts down on Fridays.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And so the members of the church in that country, they worship on Fridays. They have their sacrament meetings and their Sunday school and priesthood relief society meetings on Friday. So we actually got to I swapped my schedule so that I could actually go with the members of the branch that wanted to attend this Friday service. and it was the same. It was the same. Everything flowed the same. The sustains, the setting parts, the way the sacrament meeting flowed, the way Sunday school flowed, it was exactly the same. So to Tom's point, like anywhere you go, anywhere you go, in my experience, it really is anywhere in the world. You're gonna
I
get
mean, yeah, it's the only thing that's different is probably experience that people have in life.
right. Yep.
People have different experience, and I think you can relate. You can incorporate the experiences into your lesson and make it more a little bit more relatable to certain people. Like, I think teaching is like when you teach, it's all about relatable. Can you make that lesson? Can you make your audience relate to what you're teaching? Because if
Okay.
they
So
don't,
yeah, go ahead.
because if they don't relate, they're not going to listen. It doesn't compute in their brains. Oh well, this has nothing to do with me, so why should I listen? So somehow
Yeah.
that's why gospel doctrine I think is a little harder because you're gonna have. I mean, there's a lot of bishops, ex bishops, some ex presidents, stake president, some ex
That's how,
mission.
I
There's a
feel like
lot of
that's how
leaders.
elders quorum is now. Unless you're in one
Yeah,
of those callings, they're going to be in the elders quorum. They don't have
yeah.
high priest group meetings anymore. So all those men that were in those, it was the old person class that always seemed to go into deep doctrine during
Yeah.
their lessons. They're now in the elders quorum. So yeah,
So
yeah,
so there's nothing that you do that they haven't. There's nothing you can teach that they haven't already heard, and that's the challenging part for a lot of the for a lot of teachers these days. Like
yeah,
I was a Sunday school teacher, and one of the things is how do you get your teachers to get excited to teach? And our question is like no one really likes to teach. Let's just be real. Not everybody wants. Nobody volunteers themselves. Oh, let me teach this. This so and so and this class or whatever. They teach because they're asked to teach most of the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
And
But
so, like, to get them excited, they're not there to get excited. They're there to just to do the job, and hopefully they do a good job. But it's hard. They'd say,
so
"How do
what motivates you to do a good job though? I mean, you're extended a calling to teach,
you want to know
and
what it is?" And this
yeah,
is gonna sound so
yeah,
dumb.
I want to hear from
I'll
you.
be honest with my
It might
audience.
be it
Like,
might be different for everybody, but yeah, let's hear it from you.
I'm just arrogant. I
You're
want to be the
arrogant.
best. I want to be. People tell me, like, "Dang, Tom is
That
he's a
was
good
an
teacher."
amazing lesson. Thanks,
Like, and
Tom.
here's the thing, folks. I don't care what you say. When you do something good in the church, your brain tends to tell you, "Oh, it's all you." Now, part of it is it could be part of you. You are a vessel to the Spirit. Whoa, but a lot of times it's the Lord. It's the Spirit that's in you. Like you can quote certain scriptures. You the flow, the way that if the lesson flows well, it's all because of the Spirit. But there's part of me that think, dang, I'm pretty good. Like just say that part, and that's the arrogant in me. Like I want people to. This is such a bad motivation. But every time I teach, I want them to be like, I remember Brother Sanders said this, so and so. I remember he said this. I remember him sharing. Like, I want them to remember.
So
I
you
want
want to be
them to listen
remembered.
for that even just that one time. I want them to be like, they're like, dang, I remember Brother Cypress has said this, and and I carried that, and that's it's that pride in me, and I know it's so pathetic of me to use that as a motivation, but I
I mean,
feel
at
like
least you can admit that.
but I feel like when I am doing that and it flows well, I feel like everybody benefit. My ego benefits. My head blows up. But look, I have a wonderful wife.
She
She
keep you
always
humble
comes.
and kind, huh?
Yeah, she would ask me, so how's your lesson go? I'm like, oh, it's okay. And then I play it off like it was okay. And goes, babe, how? And she knows me. She goes, how did it go? Really? Goes, it's awesome. Like I did this and this and this. And he goes, okay, your head's getting a little bit. Let's bring it down a little bit. Let's bring it down. I have
Let's
somebody who's
recognize who the real teacher was.
yeah. And I know it's not me. It's the spirit. And I know that, but it's just part of me. I'm motivated because I want people to be like, because I have a teacher. There's 5 people in my life, 5 men that have influenced me to be who I am. And these 5, these 5 individuals have saved my life, one time or another as in the church, spiritually. I mean, spiritually, not physically, because then I would be dead. But like I have a teacher. His name is Brother Roselle, and he was my institute teacher for like how long? Maybe 5 years. And me and him clicked because he and I are like alike, like everything and everything. And so we became good friends, and like I love him to death, man. Like love this man to death, Brother Roselle. And so when his lesson, when he teach, like I mirror my way of teaching and studying the scripture through him. And when he teaches, I remember everything. Like it's memorable. It's like, and he's one of those people who makes you think and challenge you. And he might not, his motivation might be different than mine, but I want to be remembered like that. Like him. Like I want to influence somebody like him. Not because I have to do it, but it motivates me to teach better. Now,
Yeah.
granted, there are times when I just bombed. Let's just be real. Like the lesson didn't go well.
Yeah.
There was one time that in the singles ward, I was a gospel doctrine teacher, and I have no problem into letting people know how I feel. So I was teaching.
That's why we appreciate you here on the Simple Man's Gospel.
I'm teaching and I'm getting pissed off. I was pissed. I was getting pissed off. People will keep talking. People in the back are rudely getting up and down, going up, going this. And I'm like, look, when respect the teacher, first of all, if you look close to, if you have to go, I get it. You have to go to the bathroom. I get it. Oh, you have to do this. But if you're gonna talk, leave the room and go talk somewhere. Like you're interrupting.
There are people interrupting the lesson.
Yeah. Now, granted, they weren't like loud, but I can hear them. I can see them. And then all of a sudden, like and the lesson wasn't going so well. And we're talking about law of chastity, folks.
Oh dear.
I'll tell you right now, law of chastity. And I finally had it, and I got pissed. And I'm just saying this like, what do I do to get these attention? So what came out of my mouth will forever be the masturbation lesson.
Oh, buddy.
So I said, let's talk about masturbating. Let's just say the room got quiet.
Silent? Yeah.
Went silent. Everybody looking at me. And I said, people masturbate because they are selfish. And I go, agree or disagree? And everybody was like, I can't believe he just said that. Like they literally stopped and actually looked at me. Hi, babe. And they and they say, what did he just say? And one of the advisors, afterwards, I don't want to talk about it, but I can't get your attention, folks. So this is the way I'm going to get your attention. So we're going to talk about masturbating. And it's like, what is going on? After the lesson, everybody looked at me all like, wow, I can't believe he just did that. Like I've never had it before. Teachers never had a teacher who's frank and who's willing to say what he wants. Like I'm not saying anything that
this is in a singles word.
Yeah, I'm not saying I haven't said anything that you haven't done. Let's don't lie to ourselves here, guys. Come on. Of course, I didn't say that to the class, but so I walked out and
just a little bit of context for listeners that are, I don't know if there are any, but if you're not a member of the church, singles ward it's a congregation for just single adults. So it's a place to go and meet your future spouse.
That's how I met my wife.
Or to break the law of chastity. Just kidding.
All that stuff. And just so kidding. After the class was over, I talked about how it's selfish to do that. It is you're basically slapping and wasting potential, kids that could, all this and this. And I line it up just to make sure they know I wasn't joking. I was like, we're going to talk about masturbating and this is what happens. So after the class, I had 5 people came up to me and says, "Tom, I love you. I love the fact that you're just frank and that you don't care what you say." All 5 people came up to me and said that, like,
Good.
all this, and it's like, I have no issue,
And they
especially
will
I was
forever
pissed.
remember that lesson.
Yeah, I was pissed, and everyone was talking and like interrupting, and I'm like, I had it. I gotta get him. I got. So I just said that, and
Yeah,
so
I get
that
it.
is, yeah. I've teaching is it's interesting when you have to get their attention and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
What do you need? Get your hand in there. We can see your hand. Come on.
Yeah, let's say hi. Hi, Winnie. Hi. She's not gonna.
Anyways,
All
yeah,
right.
that's masturbating lesson. What's it
For
supposed to
more
be?
on the law of chastity, check our episode
Oh
on
my
the law of
gosh. Oh
chastity.
yeah. Check out- oh,
Right
man.
on. No, I like teaching.
You do?
Yeah, yeah. I think my favorite calling has been elders quorum instructor.
I don't mind another Chrome. Yeah, it was
And
fun.
I think the reason I like it the most is because we take from the general conference addresses. So it's always the
Yes.
most recent within the last couple to 6 months conference addresses. So that's why I like elders quorum because it's current and and half the elders haven't read it or heard it since general conference, so it's always new to them.
That's true though. Like
It is true.
that's
It is
everywhere, dude.
true.
That's
Yeah,
everywhere.
at least half, right? So
You're not the only one. They're not the only one. Trust me.
no, they're not. No, and there's no. I mean, I wouldn't shame anyone for not knowing what the lesson is or what is coming up, or not even have listened to the talk recently.
Well, it's funny. Like, yeah, you're not trying to shame them, but they feel shameful. Trust me, because like I should have been watching conference.
Yeah,
Because that's exactly what I said to myself. There are times when I don't watch conference because I don't know, man. It's just some speakers just don't connect with me.
Okay.
So, but you should listen. But this last one, couple of the sisters, really good.
Oh yeah, it was a good
Really
conference. Really good conference.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. So I guess I wanted to ask. So we talked about what motivates you. What motivates me when I'm teaching elders quorum. I've never been a gospel doctrine teacher. I
You
have
want
been a
the
Sunday
glory?
school teacher,
Give
right?
me the glory.
Pride. So what should be? Is that how I want to ask it? Phrase this question. What should be the motivator to being a good teacher?
I mean, I think it's just to be able to have people live the principle. You want to relate. You want to teach the principle and have them applied. I think it's just the same when we were missionaries. What's the point of teaching them? To keep the commitment, to keep those, to live those commitments and to live those principles as they go towards the water of baptism. I think it's the same concept. But I'm arrogant, dude. I want the glory, babe.
And the glory that you want will be yours, and that's it.
I think it's just because I think what should motivate teacher is to have people, audience, to live the principles that you're teaching. I think that is the motivation and the goal that you have.
So how do we progress and get to that point? And it could be, I mean, whether we're called to be a teacher in a formal setting, formal congregation, or as parents, or even when we have a discussion with somebody, because those all could come up, right? So how do we get to the point where we're just, we want people that we're discussing these principles with to just live these principles?
I guess you got to ask yourself, do you love to teach? Do you love these people?
I think that's it too. Like, I love this person to the point that, am I doing this for the love of them or the love
or
of
am I
me?
doing this to do check marks?
Right.
I did this week.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's turn. So I mean,
Yeah.
people, you said people are different. People are motivated differently,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think for me, it's more. I think anything in the church, you have to you have to have desire. I know we always go back to this, and I'm a firm believer. If you have the desire to teach, that's it. You're done. You're good, because that's the motivation that will give you to love these people. Because if you have that desire to, I don't know, like, we talk about obedience with exactness. Are you going to be motivated every single time? That
Probably
depends
not.
on how
Probably
prepared you
not.
are. Probably
Yeah.
not. There are times I'm
Well,
like,
and
man,
and I don't even know if it's comes down to preparation. Sometimes you're just not motivated.
that's
Sometimes you've had a hard week and you're like, I
agreed,
have to teach.
agreed, agreed. Because sometimes, like, I get excited when I get to teach the young men more than gospel doctrine, just because I know the material and I don't have to do a lot of preparing.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times when I'm just like, I don't want to teach, especially if it's a subject that you don't really want to teach. That right there, if if you teach about tithing, tithing is, to me, tithing is it's something you really can't teach people. You can tell them, you do this, you get this. It's not one of those things where, like, well, if you do this, then maybe you get it. It's, you pay tithe, you get blessing. It's factual. It's done. That's all you like.
That's
Oh, you can share experience in this and this. Yeah, sure. I always tell people, like, when I teach tithing, it's like, could you not pay tithing and still be blessed? People said no, and I was like, well, folks,
what about
I,
all those people that don't pay tithing
yes.
that have $1 million incomes?
So I
They don't
have
pay 10% of that to the church. They're
no.
still blessed in the eyes of the world.
No. So what is the blessing of, what is the true blessing from tithing? It isn't money,
No,
isn't
it's
wealth. It's what you have.
those I mean there are certain
Yeah,
could possibly be monetary
it
blessings, right?
could. And I'm not saying I'm not ruling
But
that
that's
out.
not that's not
But people
that's not
think
the
like, oh,
principle.
I pay tithing, I'm gonna get more money. No, you pay
It's
tithing
not
and
an
you have what's
investment.
the
If you want more money, go invest 10% in the stock market, but still pay your 10% to the church.
yeah. And so to make that lesson exciting, I never go to, like, oh, if you do this, you get this. I always ask people the opposite. I always ask them, I have a millionaire I have a millionaire here, and he's pretty wealthy. He doesn't pay tithing. Is he blessed? People say no, because he doesn't have family and true happiness. And I go, true, and I ask him, what's true happiness? To live forever with the eternal, this family. I'm like, folks, let me tell you right now, those people don't give a
They
rat's
don't
a about
care. They don't
about
care.
eternity right now.
Yeah.
At this moment, they're living the life that they want, and are they being blessed? I don't know if you call it blessed or luck. Maybe they think it's blessing, but they don't pay tithing. I know that for a fact, and yet they're still having a lot of money. They have generation wealth. So what is true? What is the true blessing? And I hate, and I always hate people that give church answer. I rule them out. I don't even want to answer them.
The
I
set
never
like
go back.
the primary answers.
Yeah, I never go back to
I
them.
read your scriptures, say your prayers.
Yeah. And so one time a sister called me out on it. It's like, I gave one answer and you never came back to me. I was like, well, stop giving church answers, because we already know those things. We already know you're supposed to pray. It's given. It's given, folks. When you're in my class, do not tell me you have to pray and read. We know that. We're not that.
Do you ever start your lessons and just like write down standard answers? Read your scriptures, say your prayers. We know these.
Yeah.
Or just write them up on the board and say,
You
if
don't
these
need to
come to your
say them.
mind, you don't need to say it.
No. It's like, and then people try to,
But
like,
I'll play devil's advocate though. Why? What's the problem with those answers?
no, there's nothing wrong with them.
Okay.
But it's given. We know as Latter-day Saints, but no, not even Latter-day Saints. I'm gonna take that label off. As Christians, We know we're supposed to read the scriptures. We know we're supposed to pray always. That is something that's given. You don't need to give me the answer. I always say, so what do we have to do to better ourselves? Well, we always have to read, we always have to pray. Yes. But what do we have to do to better ourselves without those things? Leave those out.
So what would be, I guess, what would be an answer that would be a little more meaningful to a question like that?
Well, I think to me, well, it depends on the lesson. So let's say if I was teaching, let's say, okay, my wife's gonna be like, "Did you talk about this lesson again?" The feeding of 5,000. I always teach this, right? I'm giving my secret away, babe. I'm giving my secrets away.
So when your young man asks what lesson's coming up, just tell him to start listening to the podcast.
And I already taught him that lesson.
Oh, okay.
when I teach that lesson, you read it out. It's like, oh, so Jesus is the bread of life. Yes, we know. Oh, you have to believe in him. Yes, we know but how did he do it? Oh, he prayed. We know those aren't the answers. Okay, those are not what I'm looking for. Half the time, I always ask people, what are the reaction of the what was the reaction of the apostles? Now, when I teach this lesson, I always say, take away the chronological timeline. We're not doing about timeline. We're just talking about the reaction of what the reaction is, which is kind of weird. I don't know why the apostle decided to put it that way, or maybe that happened that way, but he fed the 4,000 first, and then he went and fed the 5,000. So I'm like, no, sorry. He fed the 5,000 first, then he went and fed the 4,000 later. Which I thought you would want to flip that around, because you want to teach the principle how his power grows. Anyways, when I teach, that timeline doesn't matter. I always tell them, tell me what the apostles are thinking. And no one can ever give me some people does, like, oh, they were in this disbelief. But why were they in disbelief? Because they saw all this bread, and it's like, okay, I always ask them, but why did they but if that's the case, why did they doubt him the second time? Why not the first time? Oh, actually, they doubted him the first time. So if they doubt him the first time and they seen him do it, why doubt him the second time? And I always come to a conclusion is that the feeding of 5,000 isn't really about the fish and the bread, which it is. He is the bread of life.
Right.
But the main principle that I always teach about this is it's because we put limits on God's power. There's a number.
Right. Like we limit it.
We think he can't do it.
Yeah.
He can feed the 4,000. There's no way he can feed the 5,000. Now, granted, folks, there is more than 5,000. There's 5,000 men and their wives and children. So there's at least 10,000 people there, at least, if you double the wives and the children.
Yeah.
So the principle of that parable or the event is not because he can make bread and fish multiplied. We know he can do that. He says it back in Matthew 5 or John 8, where he says, I am the bread of life. And so I'm like, he's already taught us that. So my thinking is like, why do you keep putting limits in his power? The apostle couldn't believe that he could feed the 5,000. They believed that he could feed the 4,000, but not the 5. So therefore, we put limits on God's power when it comes to numbers. So people don't think like that. And they don't think the fact that it's like, oh, and granted, not everybody thinks like that, but most people because they don't want to. I think that's where the responsibility lies on the teacher. Is you have to convey that message for them. You have to somehow make them look at that picture and see it to be able to answer that question. And I think that's rely on us as a teacher to portray that picture to them. Explain it to them.
Yeah, it comes with preparing your questions ahead of time. I think being able to ask effective questions, because it's easy to ask a question, a yes or no question.
Yes. And my thing is this people, this is Brother Rosells, I give everything to Brother Rosells. He made me see the way that he sees when it studies scripture. When you read scripture, I don't read scripture as if these people were robots. These people have emotions. They have to think. They have to they have, the way we do. For instance, the young man that came to Christ. We talked about this. Says,
yeah, the young
I
rich
did
man.
all this.
Yep.
What lack I yet? And he couldn't give up everything. Hindsight, yeah, people, you say, yo, I could do it. Well, no, you can't. I can guarantee you cannot do it. You might say you do, but people who says that I can do that are be the first one in line to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't know if I can do that. And
Yeah.
I'm being honest.
Right.
I'm being honest. I like my stuff. I like my PS5.
Who doesn't, right? Who doesn't?
So I mean, for you to read that scripture and not understand the situation that he was in, he was asked to give up everything. He was rich. He had everything.
So do you think is it the responsibility on the teacher to
Oh, 100%, Dave.
Because so I'm going to bring this back to the Come Follow Me manual. The first lesson of the year was like we're responsible for our own gospel learning.
Well,
right
within the family, though, right? That's the family realm.
Individually,
right?
Individually.
Oh, you're talking about individually. Yes,
as an individual,
Sorry.
we are responsible for our own gospel learning. So I guess my question would be like for something like that, is it your responsibility as a teacher to make sure that the learner or the hearer thinks that way? Or
no? I think the responsibility of the teacher is to help them understand how you could how you can relate to those people. Just because they live thousands of years ago does not mean they don't have the same emotion, same thinking as you do. They're people who have to think about their family and like, I can't just leave everything to follow the Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, can you actually do it right now?
No.
So I think it's the responsibility of the teacher to help them to relate to that aspect, because I think to me it's more powerful as a teacher if you can convey that to them and then you pull that principle out and like, well, folks, this is why the atonement is for us, because we will fall short, but we have to try to somewhat be better towards that principle. Like, I think to me, look, going back to feeding the 5,000, I think we all put limits to God's power at a certain point in our life.
Yeah.
When we sin, it put limits to God's power.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think you can relate to that if you can help to convey that message. People will take that lesson, and this is the arrogant in me, Dave. Like, this is where I want the glory. I want them to remember that. Like, oh, Tom taught me that. Tom said this and this and this. That's the selfish side of me. And my wife said, it's not you, it's the Spirit. So
that's why we have those awesome spouses. They keep us humble. They keep us grounded in reality. At least mine does. My wife does.
Mine does too. But sometimes she just looks at me, it's like, whatever.
That's kind of how, most of the time, that's how my wife will keep me grounded. It's just a look. So let's flip this a little bit. Okay. So we've talked about teaching and the responsibility of teachers. So what's the responsibility of someone, a student or a learner?
I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm not a good listener, man. I am not a good listener. I sit in class. Okay. My wife can attest to this. Dave, I'm so bad. I'm gonna tell you why I'm bad, okay?
Are you checking ESPN stats while you're in class?
No. It's not that. There's only a handful of people that I will listen, and I will take their words, and I'm like, okay, he's a good teacher. One of them, he's a very good teacher. His name is Dustin Moore. He's my eldest quorum president. When he teaches, he's very intelligent, and he's a teacher by profession. He's a professor at Long Beach State. He can get my attention because he's a good teacher and he knows how to teach people. Brother Rosell, of course, every time he teaches, I will listen. Another one is his name is Ken Jenks. I call him Bishop Jenks. He's been my bishop for a long time, and so Bishop Jenks. These are the three people in my ward that I will give ears to.
And Elder Holland.
And Elder Holland. Everybody else, Dave, this is how bad I am. I'm sitting there, I'm critiquing them. Like, why would you, like, in my head, like, why would you bring that up? That makes no sense in this lesson. That's what I'm doing as the teaching is like, no, at one time, I'm not going to name names. Somebody was teaching, and this is, to me, this is actually one of the things as a teacher, you have to be able to adapt to your class.
Yeah, for sure.
You might have a lesson plan. Like today, we were supposed to talk about something else, but now we're rambling on about teaching.
Yep. We totally derailed.
But here's the thing. As a teacher, if the classroom is pointing towards one direction, you go with the class. You don't veer back to your lesson. Like if the class is taking you to the law of tithing, or like, oh yeah, this and this, you go do that. That's the Spirit telling you, look, you got the class attention. Go with it.
Yeah.
Instead of going, okay, now let me go back to my reading the book. No. I cannot stand when a teacher's up there and one person would ask a great question, Dave, and they ignore his question and go back to his lesson. When everybody was like, yeah, that is, you can tell the energy in the room. You're like, that is a great question. We should, in their mind. I'm not a mind reader, but everybody in that room was like, we should talk about that question. And the teacher said, nope, we're going back to my lesson plan and we're going to the book, and we're like, I'm so bad because I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's wrong. No, go this. I'm critiquing. It's the same thing when I watch movies, and that is the bad part about me is there's only 3 people in the ward that I give my ears to. And I have to be better at this. And I know my wife always tells the same thing when I watch movies, folks. I critique the movies. I was like, no, that plot is dumb. Why are we going there?
That's so funny.
I do the same thing with teachers. And for years, even till today, I still do a little bit, but I'm better. But for years, Dave, I sit in Sunday school, or I'll sit in Ellis Quorum. I'm like, this guy suck.
So is it
saying that? Yeah.
Yeah, I've had plenty of experiences, the exact same experience, not the exact same experience, but those exact same feelings, just
similar.
Like why are you asking that way, or why are we discussing this or that topic? Like I read through this and I'm like, this is going to be a great discussion, and then I go to class and I'm like, this is so boring. I'm like, I'm not motivated to participate. So I guess, is it bad? Is it a bad thing to have those experiences? Or is it are we doing something, or are we breaking a covenant when we criticize those teachers?
I don't know if I don't think it goes to that far, breaking covenants, but I do know this. When you don't give ears, you're missing something. You're going to miss something. It's like the end of your nose, like you see far off, but there's this thing right here in your nose that you're not taking care of. I think it's the same thing.
The Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
You see the mote in your neighbor's eyes, but you don't see the beam in yours.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. Look, I know for a fact that when I start critique, I can't say the word. What is it?
Critiquing
the teacher, I'm losing the ability to learn through the Spirit, because the Spirit is look, bless their heart, they do their best to what's it called, to prepare for the lesson, to teach people. And as for me to do that, it's a sign of disrespect to the teacher that I'm not listening to them, and I acknowledge that. And I acknowledge to myself that I'm probably missing a point that I could be learning, that I could apply to my life instead of and use that instead of sitting there and critiquing the teachers.
Do you think that I wouldn't say that it's like a lack of faith in their calling, but is it kind of just, how do I say this? so we sustain them in their calling, right? When they're
Yeah.
sustained in the congregation, we sustain them, or we show our sustainment. If we are not prepared as a learner or a hearer, does
Mhm.
that mean that we're not fully sustaining them at that moment?
Well, I don't know if you're fully. I don't think I don't know. That sustaining part is like, I mean, if you know the person's not going to be a good teacher, then don't sustain them from the beginning. You know what I'm saying?
But if they're not
But
bringing it to this to you, like to my satisfaction,
but see, then you're selfish because it's not supposed to be about you.
right?
So I think for me, I don't think it has anything to do that part for me. I can't speak for you. I can't speak for anybody in our audience. I can only speak for myself, and that
Fair
is
enough.
like, I think for me is it's wrong of me to do that. And the fact that I know it's wrong and I still do it, I'm losing on learning something. I'm losing on potentially something that could have helped me through my week.
Mm, I
You
like
know,
that. Yeah, I like that.
because what if he said something, but the whole time you're saying it was like, why is he teaching it that way? I wouldn't do it that way. It's really it's just really like something that I've tried to try not to do anymore. But the part of me is like, it's just like I, I just feel like the class would benefit more. But this is more if they do it this way. But the thing is, this isn't your class to teach. This is your class to listen. This is your teacher supposed to listen to when you don't do it. I don't really think it has to do anything with not sustaining him. I think it's more of the lack of disrespect that I might have for him because I think that I'm a better teacher. But that's just the pride in me, like and it's something that I have to work towards. But I think I sustained him as a teacher, and I'm pretty sure these guys are trying their best, but it's not them. It's the inner in something inside me that has to be worked that has to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
that has to work towards being better at that stuff. And I'm pretty sure I missed so many great principles that could apply to my life for that week or at that moment, but I didn't listen. Instead, I was critiquing the teacher. And so I don't think it has anything to do with covenant breaking. I don't think it has anything to do with not sustaining them. I think it's just more of I, I'll say it. It's just more of me thinking I'm a
There's
better
more
teacher.
pride. That is the central.
That's it.
That's
I
the
have no
central theme to
explanation.
this. Is
I have no explanation to say, oh no, it's because I just think I'm saying they're so prideful that I'm a better teacher than that person. And that's why I think it comes down to that.
okay.
And
Okay.
and I'm pretty sure I lost some. Look, I throughout the years that I've done that, pretty sure I could have used some of the principles or some stuff that they taught in my life, but I missed it because I was being very prideful. And so, yeah, there's I think to me to bring this back, listening as an audience is very important. It's not because it's so easy to judge people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, why would you ask that stupid question? I hate this the most, dude. It's when they read out of the book. Oh,
Oh, they read straight out of the manual.
I'm I'm done. I've already tuned you
There's
off.
there's some good quotes from the
And I
Come Follow
agree
Me
with
manual.
you.
There's some really good material that you can reference there.
I agree with you. But it's the delivery. You have to deliver it in a
Oh no,
different
yeah, okay.
way.
I
You
okay.
can't just read off
All
the
right.
book. You
So
have at least
let me bring it back to that question. Like, what's our responsibility as a learner, not a teacher? What's our responsibility for preparation? Do we need to come prepared for
oh
class?
yes. I think a lot of people don't realize. I think if every member goes to class and read what they're supposed to read, the discussion would be so much better and and flows better too, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it is the responsibility of the audience to do that because you're not really learning it. It's I mean you are learning if the teacher present it in the way that you can understand it, but you can't. But remember, the teacher isn't catering to you specifically; he's
Mhm.
catering to the class.
Yeah.
But but here's the thing. If you study the material, you come to class and then you say all these points and like, oh my gosh, this is a great point. They didn't mention. and you can mention it, and you can get a good conversation going because of that reason. And so I think preparing yourself as an audience is a very important thing. It helps, if anything, it helps the teacher.
Yeah.
Helps them
Yeah.
out because they don't have to sit there with the awkward silence. Because most of the people who didn't answer because they didn't prepare themselves to read the materials.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and then you still get one of those people who always have to raise their hand.
There are some, yes. There are
Bless
certain
their
people
heart.
that will
Bless their heart.
kind of dominate the comment section.
Okay, so yeah, I know, dude. You have them everywhere. People who think they're smarter than everybody. That's the most annoying thing in the world, man. Like,
You know, there's people that think they're better than the other people.
I know.
They're so prideful.
Oh man, I'm going
So
to hell.
let's bring this. I think we can bring this all together.
Yeah,
Teacher and learner. So we determine that the real teacher is the spirit.
agreed.
If the instructor of the class is prepared,
Yes,
and the students and listeners are prepared, I seem to be forgetting the scripture, but both the hearer,
man.
the teacher, and the learner, the hearer are, what's the scripture? Why can't I quote it? Both are edified and uplifted.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the scripture either, but
It's in the Doctrine and Covenants.
yeah,
So if I'm prepared to attend, or if I'm prepared to instruct or teach by the Spirit, then the Spirit has the opportunity to teach me and to teach anyone else attending that same meeting.
yeah.
So I think the responsibility is for everyone to come prepared and ready to discuss. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but
No.
more often than not, whether I'm teaching or not, if I'm prepared and open, I think you've driven this point home, right? Like if I'm there with ears open, ready to listen, I'm going to learn.
Oh yeah.
Whether the teacher is great or not, if this whether the person in the calling is a great teacher or not, if the Spirit is there, it's going to be a great discussion. It's going to be
it's going to teach you something.
Yes, there's going to be something. So
there's so many. I mean, you hit the nail right on the. What's the saying? I can't say that.
Hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, there you go. That there are times I feel like when I teach, and I'm like, there are times when I'm stuck, and all of a sudden, just boom, I can feel it. I'm in the zone. I'm in I'm in the spirit, and I'm answering question, and it flows, and it's. I know for a fact it's the spirit because I know I'm not even good at remembering names. I'm not good at English, but for some reason that day at that moment, everything was floating well. My English was good, and all that. English is good, and like the discussion was incredible, and people was uplifted. For a fact you were in the zone, or we call it in the spirit, and you were teaching the right principle that you were supposed to teach, and so you feel it as a teacher. Yeah. You feel it too, even as an audience, because like every time those three people that I give ears to, I will give more ears to other teacher. Of course I will. I'm only mentioning that because I want to tell you how I used to be. But when Dustin Moore, my Elder Quorum president, when he teaches, I remember his lessons. I remember like it's left an impression on me to be able to remember those things, and those are moments where you're like, okay, the spirit was there and we were in the spirit together as a teacher and as a learner. And so, and by the way, you learn more as a teacher than you will as a learner, because you learn so many things.
It's true.
Reading the scripture and studying and all that stuff. And so there's benefits to both. And so
yeah. So everyone come prepared to teach. that way you're prepared to listen and you'll learn.
And don't worry about what people think. Just teach your lesson.
Yeah. Don't worry about the people that are criticizing you.
I don't do that anymore. Right, babe? Nothing. Just say yes.
I think we got a couple minutes for some closing thoughts. What do you got?
I don't think I'll get away from teaching in a church. I think I'll always be a teacher. I think there's just something about it that I think I can, you look at people and like, oh, he's going to be bishop, he's going to be state president. They look at Tom's like, he's just going to be teaching. And I don't mind that. I think
Nothing wrong.
teaching is teachers are very important. Now, remember, folks, none of these people will get paid. These are all volunteer to do their callings, to stay up till 11 o'clock midnight to prepare a lesson for their class. They don't get paid for this. They do it out of their own good heart, and they work hard at it. And so some more or less, but they still work on it. And so give your teachers a break. Don't be like me. Don't critique. Just listen to the Spirit. I think that's the most important thing when it comes to teaching, and come to being the audience, is listen to the Spirit. It's there. It's waiting to teach you or help you to apply certain principles that you can use throughout the week of your life. And so I think, we we started this show talking about how no matter where you go, the principles, the gospel is the same. You teach it the same, and the way you teach it is just repetition. Now, whether it be in a clever way or in the old-fashioned way, the principle still has meaning, still has power, and you just have to listen to the Spirit. And so,
Yeah, I think that's great. Thanks. So I think we came for full circle. We talked about teaching. We talked about listening, and I think I'm just gonna re-emphasize the point that we came to, is that the Spirit is the real teacher. And if I come prepared and the teacher comes prepared, we'll definitely learn in the Spirit, and the Spirit will teach us and confirm the truth of the things that we discussed to our heart. I think that's important. It's not just that. I think we throw around the word teach without understanding that it is the Holy Ghost is testifying of truth, and the truth, who is Jesus Christ, and who all these principles are centered around, or who's centered. He is the center of all these principles that we discuss. And it's my opinion. I'm just going to share that as my opinion, that if that is the central point, if Jesus Christ is a central figure of any lesson, then we're going to invite the Spirit. And if I focus my thoughts and my feelings on Jesus Christ, his atonement, his grace, while I'm whether teaching or listening, I know that I'll be drawn closer to him through whatever discussion. It could be any principle, as long as my focus is on that and how that principle draws me to him. I'll be there. That's the point.
Agree.
So, well, this was good. We adapted our discussion. We had a good long discussion on it. That was good. That was great. Any thoughts on next time? We always tease what we're going to discuss, and then we end up not discussing that.
Well, actually, if anybody listening, maybe throw it in the comments. Like, what should we talk about?
Yeah.
Give us some subject to be able to talk about. Even if it's controversial, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
We might not like our answer, but we'll talk about it.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, we'll throw, if you've got anything, throw it in the comments. I'll ask the question. Until then, keep it simple.